already finished riding almost 30 miles on this electric skateboard. Now, I'm a little biased because this is the first electric skateboard that I've ridden, and it pretty much met all the expectations I had for what they were promoting on their site. If I look at the app right now, it says I have a total mileage of 29.2 miles traveled, so almost 30 miles. And that was at least 2 different sessions. I tried it in beginner mode for about 15 minutes and got comfortable with that. Immediately took it up to normal mode, and you could definitely feel the difference when you go from beginner to normal. Much faster, much more acceleration. It took a little getting used to, since I think I probably put most of my weight on my back foot when I regularly ride a skateboard, because I tend to rest it on the tail. And if you're not center balanced, or at least leaning forward when you hit that throttle, especially if you're not gradual, you will feel it want to fly out from underneath you. So leaning forward definitely helps. They do suggest to do that. In any case, it definitely meets my expectations as far as the power output goes. And I didn't have any problem climbing the low incline by my house. Got a slight incline I'm going up, and this thing is handling it with ease. Woo! Not struggling whatsoever. But let's talk about the specs real quick. According to Acton, this board has an 18 mile per hour top speed, a 14 mile range, can do 20% incline, and has regenerative braking. I haven't tested the complete range, but I do know that after the first day of riding, I probably rode for around an hour, and spent 15 minutes of that was on beginner mode. The rest of the time I was on normal mode, and pretty much just did loops around the neighborhood, just getting a feel for the balance and the acceleration and the braking, so that I was more comfortable with riding it. But after that hour, I logged into the app and checked the battery life and the range, and it said that I had traveled 10 miles already and still had 65% battery life. 14 mile range, I think, is a little more in line with if you were to go into pro mode and you were riding it a lot harder than I was riding it. Obviously, since I was still new to riding it, I wasn't as hard on the board. Let's talk about some of the pros that I like about it. One, as I showed you in the previous video, it has the same size as a regular skateboard. I do like that it's not a huge longboard. They call it a longboard, but really it's not as long as most longboards. So that's nice for me. I don't want to have a very huge board to always lug around if I am carrying it. Another pro is it's quiet. It is really quiet. Yesterday I did put it in the pro mode finally and rode it around, and like you could barely hear it. The traffic going by was louder than my riding. The wind that you hear going past your ear as you're riding it in pro mode is quieter. The bumps, if you're on the sidewalk, those bumps that you hit as you're riding will make more noise than the motor does on this thing. The other thing I like is that it has a tail. A lot of the electric longboards, their typical longboard build, they have a tail, but they don't have a tail that curves up. The S2 and the S1 have the slightest tail on the back, and it is possible to pivot on it. So if you're used to being able to pivot on the tail of a skateboard turn, you can do that. You can also kick it up like a regular skateboard, so you don't have to like bend down and pick it up off the ground every single time you want to go inside or stop at a light or anything of that matter. Now, other pro. The lights. The lights are really awesome. As I said, I waited until after sunset to ride the board because it's hot. It's very hot here in Phoenix and not really ideal to go riding right now in the summer. Seeing the lights light up the road in front of me and the red lights even behind me is great for visibility for other vehicles or other people. Another pro I like about it It's very smooth. The wheels are huge. As mentioned, they're very huge. I think their site states that they are 83 millimeter wheels. I was able to go through a field of grass with a lot of resistance, but I was still able to just fly right through it. But there are some things that I wish were better. One, the turning radius. Now I know that the board is a little bit longer, the wheelbase is longer than a regular skateboard. And because of that, when you do lean the board and try to turn it, it is a little bit wider of a turn. Now, like I said, at least you can pivot on the tail, so you can slow down and pivot the board and turn really quickly that way. But if you're trying to just continuously cruise, it's going to be a tight radius. What else? The tail. I like that it has a tail, as mentioned, because of the pivoting. I like the overall shape. I like the design. I like that it's flat on the front and the back, because when you rest it down and you lean it on a wall, it's not going to fall off to the left or to the right as easily. But I am used to the tail being a little wider, at least the same width as the side of the board. And the reason why I would like it to be wider is because of that turning problem. When I want to turn the board without pivoting, you have to lean pretty hard to get the trucks to pivot. Now, because my toe and my heel extend off the back of the tail over here and over here, I can't use my toes and heels to really push the board in one direction or the other. My front foot can, but it's only 1/2 of the weight of my body to turn it. So maybe if I loosen the trucks up, I'll have a little bit easier time turning. But right now I've left it where it's factory set. So and it's pretty comfortable for the most part for me. We'll see if I change that in the future. All right, let's talk about the remote. The remote does what it needs to do. You can go forward, you can go back, you can stop. If you change the switch on this one side, you can go from forward to reverse, and you get your on and off button on the other side. The lanyard comes attached. Now, not a huge deal. I'm glad there is a lanyard and that it's already attached and it comes with it, but it is connected to the back of the remote where you can't really change it out. I mean, I bet if you took the screws off and took it apart, maybe there's a way to put a different lanyard on there if you wanted to. Like, maybe you don't like red. I don't have a problem with it, but it is just nitpicking, really. The other major thing that kind of sucks is the feel of this throttle is a little questionable. So far it's been okay. It hasn't really stuck in any direction. I like that it has the return back to the center, so if you let go, it doesn't stay on throttle and keep you going. But over time, I'm hoping that it holds up. The other thing is there's no other advanced controls on here or indicators. So there's a blue light that blinks for when it has a connection, but there's no indicator of battery life. I think this is supposed to beep when the battery on the remote is low, but as far as the board itself, if you want to check the battery status, you have to log into the app, which we're going to talk about in just a minute. So I wish that you could easily see the battery status of the board. I also was hoping that there's a way to change modes on the remote, and you can't do that. You have to use the app for that as well. And not that you will be changing modes once you get comfortable using normal or pro mode. Probably won't need to change it very often unless you're going to let a friend try out the board and you kind of don't want them starting off in normal or pro mode unless they've already ridden other electric skateboards and they're a lot more comfortable with it. Alright, let's talk about the app. So I'm running an Android phone, so this might be different for iOS or Apple iPhone users, but at least on Android, the app is pretty simple and pretty basic. It does pretty much what you need. It will show you your speed, it will show you how far you've traveled. It has like a leaderboard or a scoreboard to see how far you traveled on your board. But yeah, here's what sucks about it. Every time you open it up, it doesn't automatically connect to the board. You actually have to tap the connect button, and then you have to click on the scan button. And after it scans, you have to find your serial number, press on it, and wait for it to connect to the board. Now you can see your information. And this is also the only way you can see your battery life and change modes. Two things I wish that you can see and change on the remote itself without requiring the app. The other thing that would be nice is if you could control the board with the app, just in case. Say you drop this remote and it broke. Say your batteries died in your remote, but your battery in your board is full. You can't ride it without this remote, and you can't control the board, at least moving with the app. So, Acton, if you can add that ability, I know you can't really change anything with the remote as far as changing modes or seeing battery life, but if you can make it so that the app remembers your serial number or your board and will automatically connect to it when you open it, awesome. You can make it so that you can control the board, at least in an emergency. I know it's not ideal using your phone to control and ride a board, but as a backup, it'd be pretty nice to have. Only other gripe, and this is just a small gripe, is the charging port. Now, the charging port, this is the power button. Let's turn that off. The charging port is right here. It's on the bottom of the board. There's a little silicone plug for it, and pretty basic. It does what you need to do, but this is what I'm a little worried about. Let me show you. So here's the plug. It looks like a standard power charging plug, and it literally goes straight vertically into the board. And as long as your board's in a safe enough space, it's really not a problem because it does what it needs to do. So say this cord is sticking out in a spot where it could get bumped, or underneath your desk, how I plan to be charging it, you really want to make sure that you don't accidentally hit that, because I'm not sure what the durability is of this port. I'm hoping it's made very well, because if that breaks, you cannot charge your board anymore. Alright, Blink S2. Let's talk about acceleration and brakes. This board has no problem accelerating from a stop. It might not have the same torque as a belt-driven board from what I'm told. Again, I haven't ridden one, so I'm only going off of the experience of the Blink S2. But at a standstill, I can get going and it doesn't have any problems. Starting from the base of a hill, going up in an incline, no problems. As far as brakes go, they meet my expectations. You can gradually pull it back on the remote and it will slow down, but also when you pull it all the way back, it will come to almost a dead stop. I think it doesn't come to a complete locking brake stop to prevent you from making those back wheels basically drift. Because if you've ridden a bicycle before, and you know if you pull on those brakes really hard, you'll skid out the back tire, and that can be very disastrous on a skateboard that can go as fast as this. Here's another shot of me testing the brakes. In this shot you can see that I'm coming to a line right by the camera, and I'm hitting the brakes right when I hit that line. You can see how far it takes before the board actually comes to a stop. A little farther than I like, but it's kind of expected for the gradualness of the brakes coming on. As long as you're anticipating and knowing that you have to stop, you will be able to stop. If it's an emergency stop, you might have a problem coming to a stop, but realistically, you should be paying attention to where you're riding so that you don't run into those situations. So, quick closing thoughts on my first ride with the Acton Blink S2. It runs smooth, it runs quiet, it has enough power, and overall, I'm pretty happy and wouldn't have a problem recommending the board to anyone else who's looking for a pretty powerful board that's less than a lot of the other big name boards out there on the market. There are a lot of new electric skateboard companies coming to market, or at least trying to, so we'll see if the prices go down. But for right now, I think that the Blink S1 and the Blink S2 are probably some of the best boards you can get for the cost. In any case, if you found this video helpful, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of what I do, hit the subscribe button. If you have any questions about the board, at least the Blink S2 since I have it, go ahead and leave a comment. I'll do my best to answer it. If there is any way I can show you anything else, I'll make another video to see if I can demonstrate those as well. But for the most part, yeah, pretty cool board. Thanks for watching, and maybe I'll see you in the next one. Bye.